Hey everyone, Befron here, and 2 commander decks for the price of 1 sounds pretty good, right? So even though commander precons tend to have a ton of value in new cards and great reprints, I always feel like it's really a lot of money to spend $40 or $50 on a deck that's 35 to 40 lands, and another 10 to 20 cards from the most recent standard set that they're just trying to jam in there as bulk, and then only about 40 or 50 of those cards are really cool cards that you really end up playing in your commander deck. So what I want to do whenever I put the money in to buy one of these commander decks, I want to get as much value as possible out of them. Who doesn't? I'm sure everybody watching this video wants to too. So what I've managed to do is actually build 2 commander decks out of a single commander deck and actually share a lot of the cards very easily. And I want to share that with you all today and show you exactly what I did. So what I have in front of me here is what used to be the Quantum Quandrix Commander Precon. It came out in early 2021 with Strixhaven and featured Adrix and Nev, twin casters, as the commander. It had this awesome Parallel Lives replacement effect. If one or more tokens would be created under your control, twice that many tokens are created instead. And it even had this nice little ward ability to keep itself safe from targeted removal. So this was really the star of that deck. Having another card in the commander slot that could double all your tokens is pretty awesome. So while most of the cards in the commander deck featured this sort of token ability and it provided a lot of good reprints like Right of Replication for tokens, there was also this other theme of +1/+1 counters, which we'll get to in a second, and that really kind of created a disjointed play experience. Often it would play well for a little while, focusing mostly on the token theme, but then some of those +1/+1 counter cards would get in the way, and because they're very different sorts of themes, with +1/+1 counters trying to focus on a few very pumped up powerful creatures and tokens going with a go wide type strategy, they really didn't play well together at all a lot of times, and it just made for a slow, gummed up play experience after a while. So what I did here is basically divide the deck into 3 parts. There's the core. This is the Simic core that kind of works in any blue-green deck. Counters, ramp, all that good stuff. Then I made a +1/+1 counter option as well as a token option. And specifically what I want to show you all today is what I thought of in the easy way to divide up these decks. So you'll see here up top, it looks a little messy, but you'll see up top here I have the name highlighted in green. These are all cards that have +1/+1 capabilities. So all these cards you'll see have some theme on that +1/+1 theme, and they're all highlighted with the green marker. On the other side, the counters, these are all highlighted in blue, and it makes it easy to identify that these are counter cards. I don't have to sit through every time I want to switch out this deck and read the card and try to remember, does this go in the counter deck or the token deck? It's very easy to remember. And to be clear, for those who think I'm actually writing on my cards, I'm not. I double sleeve the cards and I simply write on the inner sleeve. And these are actually dry erase markers. So even if I wanted to erase this and deconstruct this deck someday, the dry erase will wipe off pretty easily. It's actually been on there quite a while, so it's a little bit stuck, but damp cloth will get that right off. I've done that a few times. But anyway, of course, just want to make it clear that I am not writing on my nice cards. This is just on top of an inner sleeve that I kind of made this marking with a dry erase marker. So the way this works is basically this common deck right here that you see here is about 70 cards. I got to get the latest count, and each of these stacks are about 30 each. So this forms the core of the deck. All I have to do is shuffle in one of these piles, either the counter pile or the token pile, and then that becomes a 100 card commander deck. And then if I ever want to switch it out, all I have to do is search through the 100 card commander deck, pull out all of the highlighted cards, which is a lot easier. Again, I don't have to read through every card and think, did I want that in my token deck or my counter deck? Pull those cards out and then swap in the other half. So that makes it a really easy experience. Like I said, I really get 2 commander decks out of only about 130 cards. So that's really nice. And again, this Quantum Quandrix deck came with enough cards of both themes that I was able to put this together with a good amount of starters for each of those decks. So how I played this to make it so it works well for both of those themes, I tried to focus on all the stuff that played well into both of those themes that's in a Simic core. So of course there's always counters and control. I put a Counterspell and a Plasm Capture into this deck, and those are of course good for any Simic deck that you build. Then I focused a lot on ramp. So instead of going really deep into the blue control, I went into the green ramp. So the first couple cards I have to do that are around treasure tokens. So I have Tireless Provisioner, which is great, just generates a bunch of tokens every time you play lands, and then a Crack Open, which is actually a bit of removal, but also generates a treasure token. And the nice thing about this is that they are generally good cards. They work well in any deck. Having a little bit of removal and having a little bit of ramp with a Tireless Provisioner are always good. However, of course, treasure tokens are tokens, and if you play those with the token deck of Adrix and Nev Twin Casters, they get doubled. So every time a land hits the battlefield with Tireless Provisioner, I get 2 tokens, and when I play Crack Open and destroy your enchantment or artifact, I will also get 2 tokens, which is really nice. The rest of the deck really focuses on more traditional ramp that you can see here: 3 Visits, Harrow, Vastwood Surge, Rampant Growth, and Roiling Regrowth. These play well, of course, into Tireless Provisioner. And then I have other cards in the +1/+1 portion and the token portion that really benefit from lands hitting the battlefield. Specifically, there's one in here that's of particular interest, Vastwood Surge. This can be a normal ramp card, 3 and a green, and you can search your deck for up to 2 basic land cards and put them on the battlefield. But if you pay this kicker cost, all of your creatures get 2 +1/+1 counters, which of course works very well with the +1/+1 counter portion of the deck. So that's really the core of the deck. Again, a lot of ramp, very dedicated, focused ramp, and then cards that play into that from both of these themes of the deck. So to go into a little more specifics about how they benefit from this, we have Rampaging Baloth. So of course these benefit every time a land hits the battlefield. You create a 4/4 beast creature token, which of course you'll create 2 if you have Adrix and Nev, so that plays well into that. Harvest Season, which is basically a ramp based on the number of creatures you control, which of course in a token deck you should be able to easily fill your board with 10 or more creatures, and then you can slam down 10 lands pretty easily with that if you're able to get that number of creatures. Zendikar's Royal, again, every time a land hits the battlefield, create a token. And that's pretty much how that works as far as playing into that landfall and ramp. So some cards that benefit from the ramp and other cards that also contribute to doing the actual ramping. Of course, I'll put Decklist down below, but a lot of this is just remaining cards that play well in a token deck. I have not spent a ton of money on this. So, I don't have Parallel Lives in here. I don't have Doubling Season. I haven't dedicated that many funds to this deck, but it still plays really well, and I think it functions nicely between the core of the deck and the dedicated token portion of the deck. So this all goes in the common Simic pile. This all goes to the left, and then we can look a little bit at the +1/+1 counter portion of the deck. So the commander for this deck is Prime Speaker Zegana. It is a little bit expensive with a CMC of 6. However, if the rest of your deck is working well and creating big creatures that land on the battlefield, it's really easy to play Prime Speaker Zegana at about mid-game and draw about 10 to 15 cards. I've done that easily with Prime Speaker, and it's a really good win con. You're inevitably going to draw into something that gives you the game, and this has worked really well for me multiple times. Getting into some of the more details of the cards, Fertilid is that card that plays really well into the ramp theme. Enters the battlefield with 2 +1/+1 counters, then you pay green 1 to remove one of those counters and search your deck for a land. Of course, the idea is that you can get more than just 2 +1/+1 counters on it and keep searching your deck. Effectively, you have this card that continues to provide you a bunch of ramp. You just play the green and the 1, remove a +1/+1 counter, which hopefully you can keep regenerating, and then you can keep searching your deck for land and getting the effects of landfall. So the Retreat to Khazandu could of course be a very nice combo with Fertilid. Every time you get a land on the battlefield with Fertilid, it triggers the effect of Return to Khazandu. You put a +1/+1 counter on target creature, and Fertilid gets the +1/+1 counter it paid for that land back. So it kind of goes back and forth. as long as you have the lands to keep paying for it, you can keep searching your deck and never run out of +1/+1 counters on this Fertilid. Another card, Evolution Sage, of course, so this gives you Proliferate every time a land hits the battlefield. Proliferate is an effect you always want in your +1/+1 counter decks. Incubation Druid, this came as part of the pre-con. It gives you a tap for mana, but you also get 2 extra if it has +1/+1 counters on it. And then every card that has a +1/+1 counter on it gets a tap for green. And that's pretty much it. Everything else here is your standard +1/+1 counter theme cards. I'll put that list in the description below, but I hope that was helpful. I hope that gave you a fun way to make multiple decks out of one. Really get the most for your money. You effectively get 2 commander decks for only about 130 cards. It's really been a lot of fun. It's super easy to use. Also, I hope this theme of color coding your cards makes it super easy for you to switch out your decks easily. That lets you share common cores of decks with different themes. Anyway, I hope you found this useful and that you can color code some of your decks and use some of the ideas I put together here to make it easier for you to create multiple decks off of common cores of cards. So let me know in the comments down below which decks you're able to make with this strategy. Also, please don't forget to like and subscribe for more content just like this if you like what you saw today. And you can also check me out on Instagram, also at Befron_TCG, to see more photos and other multimedia content. Anyway, hope you enjoyed what you saw today, and see you next time.